A tale of compassion, survival, and unconventional love in the Wild West. The year was 1873. The American Southwest was a land of vast deserts, towering mountains, and endless conflict. It was a time when the Apache people fought desperately to preserve their homeland, and white settlers pushed westward, claiming territory that had belonged to indigenous tribes for centuries. In this brutal landscape, where violence was commonplace and mercy was rare, an extraordinary story unfolded, one that would defy the prejudices of its time and challenge everything people believed about love, family, and human connection. This is the true story of two rancher brothers and the Apache girl who changed their lives forever. In the spring of 1873, brothers Thomas and William McCarthy were riding across their modest ranch in southern Arizona territory. The McCarthy brothers were known throughout the region as fair men, tough when they needed to be, but not cruel. They had come west after the Civil War, seeking a fresh start away from the blood-soaked battlefields of Virginia. On this particular morning, they heard gunshots echoing across the canyon. Following the sound, they discovered a horrifying scene. An Apache camp had been attacked by a group of Mexican raiders. Bodies lay scattered across the ground. The raiders were known for their brutal tactics. They would kill Apache men and older women, then sell the younger women and children into slavery across the border. Thomas, to William, "We can't just ride away from this." As they approached cautiously, they heard a sound that would haunt them forever, the soft whimpering of a child. Hidden beneath the body of a woman, presumably her mother, was a young Apache girl. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. Her dark eyes were wide with terror, her small body trembling uncontrollably. The brothers faced an impossible decision. In 1873 Arizona, taking in an Apache child was dangerous. The Apache Wars were raging. White settlers and Apache warriors were killing each other with ruthless efficiency. Harboring an Apache, even a child, could make the McCarthy brothers targets for both sides. But as William lifted the girl from beneath her mother's body, as he saw the blood on her clothes and the absolute terror in her eyes, the decision made itself. "William, we're taking her home." "Thomas, do you understand what this means? The neighbors will think we've lost our minds. The army might suspect us of sympathizing with the Apache." "William, I don't care. Look at her, Tom. She's just a child. We fought a war supposedly to preserve the Union and free the enslaved. What kind of men would we be if we left this little girl to die?" The girl didn't speak. She didn't cry. She simply stared at them with those enormous dark eyes, trying to determine if these strange, white men meant to kill her or save her. They named her Sarah, a name that would allow her to move through white society without immediate suspicion. But in private, they encouraged her to keep her Apache name, Dahkeya, which meant she stays. And stay she did. The first months were difficult. Sarah spoke no English. The brothers spoke no Apache. They communicated through gestures, through patience, through the universal language of kindness. Slowly, Sarah began to trust them. Thomas taught her to read and write. William taught her about ranching, how to ride horses, how to care for cattle, how to survive in the harsh desert environment. They never tried to erase her Apache heritage. On the contrary, they encouraged her to remember her people, her culture, her language. Thomas, voiceover, reading from his journal, September 1873. Sarah smiled today for the first time. It was like watching the sun break through storm clouds. "William and I have decided. We will protect this child with our lives. We will give her the chance to grow up safely, to choose her own path. We owe her that much." Years passed. The Apache Wars gradually wound down. Geronimo, the legendary Apache leader, finally surrendered in 1886. The wild, dangerous Arizona of Sarah's childhood was slowly transforming into something more settled, though no less harsh. Sarah grew into a remarkable young woman. She moved between two worlds with unusual grace. She could discuss literature with a local schoolteacher and track a deer through the mountains with equal skill. She wore both Western dresses and traditional Apache clothing, depending on the situation. She spoke English without an accent but never forgot her native Apache language. The McCarthy brothers had never married. Some in town whispered that they were too busy raising Sarah. Others suggested that no proper woman would marry men who had raised an Apache child. But the truth was simpler. Thomas and William had poured all their love and attention into giving Sarah the best life possible. Sarah, at age 16, speaking to Thomas, "Why did you save me that day? You could have ridden past. No one would have blamed you." Thomas, "Because it was the right thing to do. Because you deserved a chance to live. Because the moment we saw you, you became our family." In 1891, when Sarah was 25 years old, she made a difficult decision. She wanted to find what remained of her Apache people. Many had been relocated to reservations. She wanted to know her heritage, to understand where she came from, to perhaps find any surviving relatives. The brothers were heartbroken but understanding. "William, you'll always have a home here. Always. You understand that, don't you?" "Sarah, you saved my life. You gave me a life. I will never forget that. But I need to know who I am. I need to see my people." So Sarah left the McCarthy Ranch. She traveled to the Apache reservations in Arizona and New Mexico. She spent months there, reconnecting with her heritage, learning the traditions that her mother never had the chance to teach her. She found distant cousins, heard stories about her parents, and slowly pieced together her past. But she also saw the harsh reality of reservation life. The Apache people, once free to roam the vast Southwest, were now confined to small parcels of land, dependent on government rations, stripped of their traditional way of life. During her time on the reservation, Sarah experienced something unexpected. Several Apache men expressed interest in marrying her. She was educated, resourceful, beautiful. But as she got to know them, as she lived on the reservation and saw the limited opportunities available, she found herself thinking constantly about the McCarthy brothers. She realized something that shocked her. The deepest love she had ever known, the strongest bonds she had ever formed, were with Thomas and William. They had been her protectors, her teachers, her family. But over the years, something else had developed, something deeper and more complex. Sarah voiceover, from her diary, February 1892. "I have searched my heart, and I know the truth now. The McCarthy brothers saved my life when I was 7 years old. They raised me, protected me, educated me. They loved me when the world said I didn't deserve love. They are not my fathers. I remember my father, and they never tried to replace him. They are not my brothers. The bond we share is different. They are the men I love. Both of them. Is this wrong? Is this sinful? All I know is that my heart leads me back to them." In the spring of 1892, 18 years after that fateful day when two rancher brothers found a terrified Apache girl hiding under her dead mother, Sarah McCarthy returned to the ranch. She was no longer that frightened child. She was a woman, confident, educated, beautiful, and deeply certain about what she wanted. "Sarah, I need to tell you both something. I've thought about this for months. I know it's unconventional. I know people will talk. But I don't care." The brothers waited, confused and anxious. "Sarah, you saved my life. You raised me. You taught me to be strong, to be independent, to think for myself." "Well, I've thought for myself. And here's what I know. I love you both. Not as fathers, not as brothers, as men, as partners. I want to spend my life with you both. I want to build a life together." Thomas stunned Sarah. "What you're suggesting, it's against the law. Society would never." "Sarah, society? Society would have let me die in that canyon. Society would have denied me an education because I'm Apache. Society said you were fools for taking me in. When has society ever been on our side?" For 3 days, the three of them talked. They discussed the legal implications, the social consequences, the moral dimensions of what Sarah was proposing. Polygamy was illegal in Arizona territory. They couldn't have a legal marriage, at least not all three of them. But as they talked, the brothers began to understand something profound. The love they felt for Sarah had evolved over the years into something neither had fully acknowledged. They had both fallen in love with the woman she had become. "William, if we do this, we do it honestly. No pretense. We're a family, all three of us equally. We share everything, the work, the land, the life we build." "Agreed." Sarah and Thomas, agreed. They found a solution that worked within the constraints of their time. Thomas legally married Sarah in a small ceremony attended only by the ranch hands, who had known them for years. But in their hearts and in their daily lives, all three were partners. They expanded the ranch. Sarah proved to be a brilliant businesswoman, negotiating deals with buyers and managing the finances. Thomas oversaw the livestock operations. William managed the land and water resources. Together, they built one of the most successful ranches in southern Arizona. Children came, 3 sons and 2 daughters. The children grew up knowing the truth about their family. They called both Thomas and William father and never questioned the arrangement. In their household, it was simply normal. Sarah, to her children, years later, your father saved my life when I was younger than you are now. They gave me everything: safety, education, love, opportunity. Some people say our family is wrong, that it's sinful or immoral. But I say that love is never wrong. The capacity to love generously, to build a family based on respect and partnership rather than convention, that's something rare and precious. The McCarthy-Dahkeya family faced constant scrutiny. Neighbors gossiped. The local minister preached sermons that were clearly aimed at them, though he never mentioned them by name. Some businesses refused to deal with them, but they persevered. The ranch prospered. The children thrived. And slowly, grudgingly, the community came to accept them, or at least to tolerate them. When Arizona achieved statehood in 1912, Sarah was 46 years old. She had lived to see the wild frontier of her childhood transform into something more settled and civilized. She had also lived to see attitudes about Native Americans begin to shift, however slowly. William passed away in 1915, at age 68. He died peacefully on the ranch he had built, surrounded by the family he loved. His last words were to Sarah, "Best decision we ever made." Thomas lived until 1922. In his final years, he wrote extensively about their unconventional family. He never apologized for their choices. He wrote, "We built a family based not on society's rules but on love, respect, and mutual commitment. Our children are proof that such a foundation is strong enough to weather any storm." Sarah outlived both brothers. She died in 1928, at age 62. In her will, she left the ranch to her children equally, along with a letter that instructed them to never be ashamed of where you came from or how you were loved. The story of Sarah Dahkeya McCarthy and the 2 brothers who loved her challenges our assumptions about family, love, and social norms. In a time and place known for violence and intolerance, they created something beautiful and lasting. Were they perfect? No. Did they face enormous challenges? Absolutely. Did they violate social conventions and legal norms? Without question. But they also demonstrated something profound, that families can take many forms, that love can transcend cultural boundaries, and that sometimes the greatest courage lies in refusing to accept the world as it is and instead building the world as it should be. Today, the McCarthy-Dahkeya Ranch is owned by descendants of that unconventional union, a blend of Apache, Irish, and Scottish heritage. They maintain a small museum on the property, telling the story of the 2 rancher brothers who found a terrified Apache girl and chose compassion over indifference. The story reminds us that in the harshest landscapes, both geographical and social, human kindness can bloom in unexpected ways. It reminds us that family is not always defined by blood or by conventional marriage, but by commitment, by love, and by the willingness to protect and nurture one another. In 1873, 2 brothers made a choice that defined their lives. They chose mercy over convenience. They chose love over propriety. They chose family over convention. And 18 years later, the girl they saved chose them right back.